One of my favorite things in the world to do is watch Friends. I know it's been off for years and years. It's not even around, but I still find myself binge watching old episodes. And I was thinking about this today and thinking, it's the predictability of the friends in the circle, right? You have Chandler with his quirkiness, Monica with her type A of just everything has to be so neat and tidy and organized. It's Phoebe's ability to make you laugh at her silly songs. Ross always comes in with those smart comments, and Joey and him and his food, like it is just so hilarious. And of course, Rachel, she just brings everybody together, and it's just such this beautiful, cohesive team of people. And it's why I wanted to come on and share with you today that I have an opportunity for you to find your friends in the content creation space. So if you are thinking about creating your first or your next digital course, I don't want you to miss this opportunity because Amy Porterfield just opened the doors for registration for her Course Confident Bootcamp. And I'm actually offering a special bonus for anyone that registers for the Course Confident Bootcamp through my special link. So I want you to go to crystalprofit.com/Amy-bootcamp to register. That's crystalprofit.com/Amy-bootcamp. And what you're going to find when you get there is I have this special bonus private podcast series. It's called Money Mindset for Creators. So I want you to go register for Amy's bootcamp, download the podcast, and immediately start listening to it, because what this training is set up to do is to help you get your mind right about monetizing your content, making money so that you can fuel your content creation dreams. So go to crystalprofit.com/Amy-bootcamp to register for Course Confident. And I cannot wait for you to find your friends and find the people that will be there for you. Do you see what I did there? Yeah, nice little friends segue connection. Go to crystalprofit.com/Amy-bootcamp. And I cannot wait to see you inside. Okay, let's get into today's episode. I just want to start off this episode by saying hate is a very, very strong word. But I can't even tell you how many people I've heard say, I hate the sound of my voice. I hate it. I can't stand it. I don't like listening to myself. I've recorded things and then I hear myself either on a podcast or a video or even just a voicemail. And I think, oh, I just cannot. Podcasting is not for me. I absolutely hate the sound of my voice. Well, we're going to talk about that because there are some things that you can do to get past this. I don't know if it's a fear or if it's a confidence thing or just getting over, the sound of your voice. But we're going to talk about how you can get over it and just push past that uncomfortableness. So stay tuned for all the fun things that I have to offer you today. Welcome to the Profit Podcast, where we teach entrepreneurs how to start, launch, and market their podcast. I'm your host, Crystal Profit, and I'm so excited that you're here. Thanks for hanging out with me today. Because if you've been thinking about creating a podcast for a while, well, I'm so glad you found this show. Think of this as the shortcut / time-saving version of searching Google and YouTube for hours and hours trying to figure out the world of podcasting. Trust me, as a busy mama of 3, I get it. You don't have a lot of time to be spent or wasted, I should say, searching the web, trying to find all the right ideas and all the amazing things that are out there, and you just end up overwhelmed. Trust me, I've been there, done that, took home the souvenir. But this podcast is going to help you in practical ways because twice a week we'll be delivering episodes that are going to give you steps to help you create a podcast your audience can't wait to listen to. So let's get right to it, shall we? Holy moly. This podcasting stuff is so overwhelming. I don't even understand. Like, you have to pick out equipment, and then you have to decide on a name, and then you have to say, am I going to have guests? Am I not going to have guests? Like, what am I, like, just all the questions, right? I totally get it. This is exactly where I started when I first started podcasting. I had all of the exact same questions, and I, to be perfectly honest, was overwhelmed. Totally overwhelmed with what I was doing. So I don't want you to feel that way. I've actually created a page specifically dedicated for people that want to start, launch, and market their podcast. It's at crystalprofit.com/start here. And there you're going to find our 3-step framework for you to start, launch, and market your podcast. Everything is in one place, and you can find all of the details for how you can create your podcast this year. So ditch the overwhelm and let's get after it. Let's do this thing together. Again, that's crystalprofit.com/start here. And be sure to grab all of the amazing freebies while you're there, including the quick and dirty video. You'll see what I'm talking about when you get there. Okay, so I'm going to take it real old school for a second. Do you remember the very first time you heard yourself on any kind of recording? Maybe it was that Home Alone voice recorder. Did you have one of those? Like that he has like in the Lost in New York. I think it's Home Alone 2, right? Where he has that thing where he's imitating the guy from the commercial. Oh my gosh, that's totally, I love that movie. But anyway, on that recorder or on your home voicemail or just some silly home video and like just a recording that made you say, oh my gosh, is that really what I sound like? You know what I'm talking about. Everybody has this where you just think, oh my gosh, my voice is so high pitched, or I'm so loud, or I sound so shrill. Oh my, like that's really what other people hear because you don't hear it that way in your head, right? Like you totally sound different in your own head than you do when you listen to it on a voicemail or somewhere else. So I want to just say real fast, that's totally normal. You are normal. That is how everyone is. But whenever you have a podcast, you listen to yourself a lot more than normal people do, right? I don't know a lot of people that just sit around listening to their own voicemails. I guess if you have like a YouTube channel and you watch your own videos and you listen to yourself talking on there, that would be the only other equivalent that I can think of. But if you're a blogger, you're reading your own writing. You're not listening to your voice. But if you're a podcaster, oh my gosh, you got to get used to hearing your own voice over and over and over again, unless you are like a very small portion of the population and you outsource all of your editing. Now, I know a lot of people do this, but I am not one of those people, and I don't know a lot of people that can afford to do that whenever they're just starting. So for everyone else that has to do their own editing, has to do their own recording, and has to do everything themselves, I'm talking to you. Because it's going to be uncomfortable when you first start podcasting and you have to listen to yourself because you're like, everyone's initial reaction is, oh my God, I hate my voice. And I started this episode by saying like, hate is such a strong word, but it's what I hear a lot of people saying. Like, I absolutely hate my voice. What do I do? So I have 3 important things that I want you to consider whenever you're thinking about your voice and recording in your podcast. But the first thing I want to say is give yourself some grace. Like, be nicer to yourself. Because like I said earlier, what you hear in your head is totally different than what other people hear. So be a little bit nicer to yourself. You don't sound as bad as you think you do. And even though, like, I know I have an accent, it's not as bad as it used to be. When I go home or I talk to one of my best friends from my hometown, like, yeah, it comes out a little bit stronger. You can definitely hear that Texas twang, like, really, really bad. But you know what? I don't let that stop me. Like, it's who I am. I'm not going to change what I sound like, or I'm not going to change my voice just because it'll make other people feel comfortable. This is just how I talk. And so I encourage you to do the same thing. Just accept who you are, love your voice because it's just as beautiful as you are, and it's completely unique to yourself. So, but I do have some suggestions and 3 tips to give you for how you can get over your own voice and just not let that hold you back from having an amazing podcast. So the first thing I want you to think about is valuable content is more important than how you sound. So let me say that again. The value that you deliver through your content is way more important than how you and your voice sounds. Oh my gosh. Because people, they don't really even care. Like, I mean, I guess unless you had a super annoying voice or people were just like, oh my God, that Crystal chick, her accent is so bad. I cannot listen to her anymore. Then they're not going to listen to me anyway. And that's totally fine. Those aren't my people. If you're listening to this, if you hang out with me every week, I so appreciate it. And you are my people. You get me. You get my quirks. You get my silly jokes and my references. And I so appreciate you showing up here week after week. I'm so grateful to have the people that come and hang out with me because this is just so much fun. But let's be honest, you don't come hang out with me because I have a super cool radio voice or I sing really well, because God knows I joke with my kids all the time that I'm going to go try out for American Idol or America's Got Talent and sing. And they're like, Mom, we're pretty sure you would be booed off the stage. And I'm just like, you're right. You're right. I would be one of those that they're like, is she for real? I would end up in the blooper reel as like the contestant that tried out that was really, really bad. That would be me. So I know that you don't come here every week for my voice. You come here for the content because that's what I try to deliver. The content that I create and I want to bring to you is so much more valuable than how I sound. It's not about having a super fancy microphone. It's not about using big words that'll make me sound smarter, because trust me, that can backfire really quick. I will say, speaking of funny little quirks, I do try to use the word discombobulated like whenever I can, because I'm like, oh, that's just such a big word and I like to say it like it just, the way it rolls off the tongue, that's just discombobulated. Because come on, like, y'all know I'm not fooling anyone. My vocabulary isn't very extensive, but every once in a while I'll throw a word in there. But that's not like, come on. Y'all know that's not me. Y'all know I'm very simple. I'm very straight to the point, and I like to have fun. And I just believe that putting your customers or your audience or the people that could potentially be part of your tribe, like, it's more important to put the valuable content out there for them than it is to focus on yourself, because it's not about you. Come on, like, let's just be real. It's not about you. It's not about me. It's about the people that we serve. So that is what is most important. So remember that the valuable content is more important than how you sound. So the second thing I want to talk about is, if your voice bothers you that much, then do as little editing as possible and then don't listen to it again. And I know that might make some people uncomfortable. So for you perfectionists out there, this message is directly for you because you're in there and you're like, oh, I got to edit this. I got to take out all the ums and the okays and the so's and the buts and all the, the weird clicking sounds that I make, or whenever I take a breath. Oh my gosh, y'all. Like, can we just stop editing as crazy people? Because this is just a natural conversation. You take a breath whenever you're talking. Like, think about all the keynote speeches you listen to or the videos that you watch. People have to take breaths. So we don't have to take those out of all of our podcasts. Like, I mean, if you're heavy breathing or you got like that smoker's breath, like, I just sounded like Forrest Gump. Y'all know that scene I'm talking about when he's on the porch. Oh my gosh, that's so inappropriate. Anyway, but you know what I'm talking about. Like, don't do all that crazy editing. Just, this is my editing process, like, for real. This is exactly what I'm going to do after I finish this episode, and what I do for all of my episodes whenever I do a solo podcast. I listen to the episode or the interview. I cut out where if I mess up, I will stop talking. So I know that there's a big chunk of time that I need to go and look at. So I can look at those at the beginning and edit those. But honestly, I don't do a whole lot of editing unless I totally screw up. I really don't spend a lot of time editing. I will listen to an episode once, do an edit, and then I will go in and do the final touches, and then I save it and I'm done. I don't sit there and go back and listen to all of my podcast episodes, because if you're like me, I don't like listening to my own voice over and over and over again. I like to just hear the message, make sure it's good, do any editing that needs to happen, and then I save it and boom. Like, I don't listen to it again. Once it's out there in the universe and I know it sounds good. I had one time somebody told me that the interview guest, like, their volume was too low, so I needed to go back and change that. But other than that, I don't go back and listen to a lot of episodes. There's no point. It's just kind of like, put it out there in the universe and keep going. I feel like it's kind of living in the past if you listen to your stuff over and over again. I think it's great to reference it, but I just do that minimal editing and just kind of move on, because it's not about me. It's not about me. It's about the content. It's about delivering the best possible content that you can deliver to your audience, and then moving on. Like, let's just keep going. What's the next piece of content that I can add value to you and your podcast? So that's number 2, do minimal editing, and then don't listen to it again if it bothers you that much. Just move on with your life. Okay, and the last tip that I want to give you, and it may seem really obvious, but I'm going to say it anyway: practice, practice, practice. I know when I first started, I kind of fumbled over my words for a few episodes because I didn't really know how I wanted to say, or I didn't know if I was talking too fast or too slow, or if I sounded too scripted or whatever. There were so many reasons that I wasn't fully comfortable with my voice when I first started podcasting, and it's totally normal. But whenever I say practice, 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 it makes me think of my childhood coach that I had for years and years. She was our babysitter. Then she was my coach in middle school. And like, just shout out Coach Kirksey, I'm talking about. Like, she has just been such an influence in my life. But I remember her telling me, when I was on these different teams, I was like, you've got to practice, practice, practice. Well, that, and she also said to us, like, all the time when she would make us run, because we would just groan and complain about it, she would always say, one day you're going to pay someone to make you want to work out. And I was like, whatever. But she was talking about a personal trainer. And I got to say, I've had a personal trainer or two in my day, and she was 100% right. But anyway, so like, that was a little tangent, but you'll only feel more confident the more you practice. So maybe you can't change the way your voice sounds, or maybe you can. Maybe you want to pick up a crazy accent to do, I'm all about characters. If you're an actor and you just want to act the whole time on your podcast, that is more power to you. I think that is amazing and hilarious, and I would love for you to send me your show if this is what you do, because I think that could be a great talking point to help my students in the future. But other than that, like, just practice. You're not going to be great at it the first time you do it. I mean, it's kind of like riding a bike, right? You didn't just hop on your bike the very first try and just take off like Lance Armstrong and you're like, you know what? I got this. You didn't do that. And it's not going to happen with podcasting either. You're not going to feel 100% confident until you start doing it over and over and over again. And I promise you, y'all, this is episode 60. I'm 60 episodes in, and there's still times when I think, oh my gosh, is that really what I sound like? So I'm not going to say that it goes away after you've done this for a year or after you've been doing this for 60 episodes, but I will tell you that you don't notice it as much, right? Like, I don't even notice, if I say something funky or if I say something that just sounds weird, I just don't even let it bother me, because it's not about me. It's about the content that I deliver to other people. It is about the content that delivers value to my students or to my audience. It is all about the value. So if you want some more tips on how to sound like a pro even when you're not, then I encourage you to go check out episode 56, which is titled Sound Like a Pro Even When You're Not. And there's some great tips in there. And there's actually a free PDF download that went with that I'm going to encourage you to look at for this episode. And that is 10 ways to sound more confident behind the mic. And that's in the resource library at crystalprofit.com/tips and strategies. That's Crystal with a K, Profit with 2 F's and 2 T's. So go check that out in the resource library and see if you can find some more tips on there that can help you just feel more comfortable with your voice, right? Because it's yours. It is uniquely yours, and people will gravitate to you, or you may repel some people, and that's okay too, because you're not everybody's cup of tea. I know that there's some people that will listen to this podcast once and say, dear God, that Texas girl, I can't handle her accent, and I just, I'm just gonna turn her off, and that's okay. I'm totally fine with that. But just know that everyone struggles with this at some point. So if you feel like, oh my gosh, I hate my voice, just remember these 3 things. I'm going to say them again. Valuable content is more important than how you sound. Do minimal editing and then don't listen to it again. And number 3 is practice, practice, practice. I promise it will get easier the more you practice. But that does it for this episode, guys. So if this is your first time tuning in, I'd love for you to subscribe to the show and hear what other fun things we're going to be talking about soon in the coming weeks. We're going to be talking about building an email list with a podcast and a lot of other fun things. So be sure to grab the free PDF download, 10 ways to sound more confident behind the mic, and that's in the resource library. And check out the show notes for this episode at crystalprofit.com/episode 60. And remember, keep it up. We all have to start somewhere. Hey, Profit Podcast listeners. Thanks for sticking around to a little bit after the episode to hear this special message, because I want to hear from you. We are starting a new segment called Fan Mail Shoutouts, and I want to hear from you, and I want to hear your questions. What do you want to know? What questions have you been dying to ask me? So here's how to make this happen. Go to the app where you're listening to this podcast right now. Go there. I'll wait a second. Okay. Now, once you're there, you're going to see a hyperlink at the top of the episode description that says, send Crystal a text message. And that's all I want you to do. Send me a text. It could be casual, informal. It could be totally anonymous. Or if you want, you can include your name and the name of your podcast or content wherever you are creating, and I will give you a special shout out in an upcoming episode. So again, go to the show notes for where you're listening to this episode right now, and it will say, send Crystal a text message. And I cannot wait to hear from you and give you a shout out in an upcoming segment of Fan Mail Shoutouts.